The farmers are skilled and they're financially empowered. So we've created this system called BankQ that some of you know. When you come here with your barley, you will get an SMS receipt that now you will have permanently.
The SMS message has the quantity, the quality, and the price.
They have a record.
This buying station has a record, and now breweries have a record.
Getting BankQ into the system to get sort of like real-time information that I can use in terms of better management. That is really exciting.
And then when you start to bring in banks who are going to use that information to bank these farmers, they start to connect those dots and realize that this is much bigger than just an SMS on their phone.
They can access these vital financial instruments that can increase their business, the ability for them to earn, to produce more, and to make more for their families and for themselves.
Good answer, right? Yeah.
Thank you. Just a request to the people that are coming to speak after. There is what they call the law of diminishing returns. You can already see when people start nodding before you ask them any question. It tells you quite a lot about. So we need to find a very disruptive way of making these presentations run faster. Otherwise, that beer, we need to be part of the blockchain. It's waiting for us up there. So don't stand in between the beer. Tia. Over to you. Please come and share with us in HR how we can get to use. I actually wanted to ask a question. If I get an opportunity to drink the beer, is there a possibility of me being part of the blockchain in that consumption value chain? You'll answer that question in the panel, but just think about it. Because I want to see if I can add some credit.
I can answer it now. We're looking at moving blockchain to the micro or to the selling part also, and then we'll know where he drank the beer, and also what type of beer, and also what time he drank the beer.
Thank you. So, hi, my name is Thea Somerset-Marion, and I'm the co-founder and CEO of Douala. We've been working and testing here in Uganda since April last year. So, Africa has the youngest, fastest growing workforce in the world. It's an unbelievable pool of talent. But in the same time, people are having a lot of challenges in terms of verifying their identity, and costly and slow verification processes is a huge challenge and are causing delays and lost opportunities for youth. But it's not because of lack of dedication, because in fact, 700,000 students actually graduate in Uganda each year. But they need a secure way of showcasing their skills and growth. This is why we've built Douala, which is a digital identity platform that gives verification of skills. It's easy to use in the way that a student gets digitally signed and verified credentials. They then have the opportunity to easily share this with whoever they want to, which also gives them the access to go anywhere they want in terms of verifying their work history and education. So how have we done this? Well, we've been focused on building this in terms of the ecosystem by giving institutions an opportunity to issue identity and then being able to also issue digitally signed and verified credentials. This saves time, money, and energy for all in terms of the ecosystem. Whether you are a university, whether you are an employer, and it's increasingly important. So what's important for us is that we're focused on switching the way we look at digital identity today. And what is the challenge? One, it's management, and it's two, also communication. So there's no interpretability in the way that we have access to our own information. So if you want to have access to the information that's out there with you today, you don't have that. And the way we want to build this is basically that we want to make sure that you have access to control and ownership of your own information. And this is what we do if we use a decentralized mechanism. So I want to share with you how we've actually done this in the way that we've connected to the Ethereum blockchain, giving people a DID. That basically is a identificator that represents you online. Once we've issued that, we connect you to an identity management system. We've used Uport. And the reason why we use additional systems is because we want to prove the use case of what actually decentralized identity can do. So we right now has built on layer 3 in the way that we're able to both issue and verify data, and we have one holder, which is then the student itself that can have access to that information. And I'm proud to say that we were the first ever use case for decentralized identity and verified credentials here in Uganda, working with Clark University in December last year. So we're extremely focused on bridging the gap from physical to digital. And the way we've done that is that we've developed a feature that you're actually able to get a physical certificate, a piece of paper, but with a digital signature that links to the verification in terms of the encryption of the platform. Moving forward, we're now focused on also a project called I'm Employable here in Uganda. It represents three things. We're collaborating with Career Imagination Program in IWC that also does practical skill training and ethical skill training. And then we are able to issue digital verified credentials of that training. We then place students in internships and understand what is the value given and also what is the value given then for the employer in terms of being able to verify what the institution is saying that they've issued to the student. And I'm very, very happy to say we started this project now last week. So I invite you, everyone that wants to collaborate on this project. We're scaling it now in Uganda and moving forward also across East and West Africa. In terms of our partnership and customer focus, we've done this in small iterative pilots with Clark University and Michael over here, which I'm very happy was ready to go. But moving forward, we want to scale also with medium and large-sized institutions in the way that we need to show scalability to the platform and also the use of decentralized identity. Moving forward from this, we will also focus on the matching of a skill identity and a financial identity. So we partner with an institution called Isusu, which gives credit scoring of people when you pay rent or if you also do payments to SACCOs. In that way, we're actually being able to give you a verified credential of also your financial literacy. This is a project also scaling in Ghana in collaboration with MasterCard from next year. As a part of this, we're also a part of the Decentralized Identity Foundation, which I will encourage you all to be a part of, in the way that we all need to be able to build the protocols in the way of how we can build this as a collaboration across sectors together. We're an experienced team of small team also, but we're now also scaling and hiring across the fall. So if you're looking for opportunities here in Uganda, I invite you also to come talk to us and Marina, our co-founder over there. But more than everything, I invite you all also to join our mission in the opportunity that we want to give to young people. Being able to prove exactly what you've done and connecting African workforce to global opportunities. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I think she deserves a bigger round of applause. I mean, we all deal with human resources in our organizations, and we all need her services or her, her help in integrating blockchain technology into managing or how to manage our human resources better. Now, our next speaker, or before I actually invite our next presenter, the fintech, in one of the breakaway sessions, Michael, the fintech session, the participants requested if they can be given some time tomorrow because there was a lot there were a lot of questions unanswered, and they're hoping that the organizers can give them some time tomorrow. But one of the key issues that actually stood out was safety of data. You know, you're talking about people's money here. So our next speaker, presenter, is Mr. Anand Mohan, the Chief Operations Officer, TechnoBrain, and is talking about blockchain for traceability, supply chain. I actually meant to ask the person talking about big data in Africa, but it's okay. It's okay. So our next presenter is Mr. Anand Mohan, the Chief Operations Officer at TechnoBrain. Talk to us about blockchain for traceability, supply chain, and insurance. Now, you realize that we indeed can't run away from blockchain. Everywhere you go, insurance, banking, health, transport, name it. Welcome, Mr. Anand.
Thank you. Thank you. Good afternoon, everybody. My name is Anand Mohan. I'm representing a company called TechnoBrain. TechnoBrain was born in Tanzania, grown in Africa. Today, we're going to become a global technology company operating in 21 countries with 1,400 people, of which 20 countries are in Africa. Thank you for the opportunity. I'm going to discuss the use case in supply chain and traceability. In traceability, the biggest challenge is the trust, the source of trust. It's a multi-stakeholder involvement, and the transactions are between unknown parties. The traceability is applicable. Today we have seen one of the speakers talking about the certificates. The traceability is applied in minerals like diamonds. Traceability is applicable in food. Traceability is applicable on any goods that are moving. So we have done 3 projects in traceability. One is in Kenya, the rose flowers providing traceability from the farm till it is sold in Amsterdam. It is grown in Naivasha, moved to Nairobi, shipped, airlifted, logistics, and the next day morning they were sold in Amsterdam. So the whole traceability we have provided. We have provided traceability on blockchain. The second we have done is similar at a very small scale for barley. Again, that's for another brewery in Ethiopia. The third interesting case which I am going to talk for next few minutes is for one of the revenue authorities in Southern Africa, which is a landlocked country. We provided them electronic cargo tracking system. Electronic cargo tracking system using a cloud-based technology and IoT. The trackers put on the vehicles and also electronic seals put on the trucks. The challenge was that they do not have a port. So the goods were coming from another country, which are cleared for that particular country, and they are moved. They supposed to go and get cleared in that country, but a lot of goods are being dumped outside the country without taxes being paid. So once we put the electronic cargo tracking system in place, within the first 6 months of the operation, the customer was able to save millions of dollars. But the challenges were that there was no single source of truth that all the stakeholders could have access to. The moving of information was really taking time, and different phases of information is available to different stakeholders, so there was no unified view. So we have done this proof of value for this customer by putting the entire electronic cargo tracking system on blockchain. The stakeholders that are involved, the obviously the revenue authority, the inspection agents, the transporter, the importer, and the financial institution that is involved, and the other local law enforcement authorities, and the warehouses, and at the border, the customs department, which is clearing the goods. After putting the entire system on blockchain, the advantage is that the information is available instantly to all the stakeholders. Because this is a private blockchain, there was no need to have any consensus method here, because all the stakeholders within the blockchain network are vetted and are permissioned. But when there is an electronic handshake between two parties, then there's a regulator involved. So there is a time-stamped, a geo-stamped transaction that is put into the blockchain, written into the blockchain, and approved by a third-party stakeholder. This provided information instantly to all the stakeholders, one. Two, for the government organization, the fraud, first of all, we corporate transactions with the IoT, I think the estimation was about they could cut almost 60% of the fraud transactions. So additional 15 to 20% fraud was still able to tell when we put the system on blockchain. But commercially, there are three main challenges that came in, which didn't allow the project to scale up to a commercial level. One, other stakeholders from the government did not see a great value to be participant to the entire chain network. So it was by a mandate given by one authority. So some of the fundamental principles we talk about, the equal rights and participating method, was not felt by other stakeholders. So the uptake was not that great. Second one was because one of the participant is an IoT device which is transmitting the information and information to the chain network. So a lot of dispute saying that no, the cargo did not deviate from a geotagging location, or this was the time that the goods were dumped, or this was not the correct timestamp. So there has to be we have to create a proof, we have to create a system that will alert and also show a systematic proof to the stakeholders to convince that it was time consuming and there was a lot of conflict and confrontation was going on. But all in all, the revenue authority still feels that this solution is scalable. Now we are working on the incentive as mechanism for each stakeholder, and also what is the benefit for them and what is the value that they derive. So we are creating incentive system for each stakeholders to voluntarily come into the blockchain so that they also see a value. Each stakeholder will see the value. So that's the next phase of the project that we are moving to. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Mohan Anand. Hope I said that right.
Yeah.
Thank you very much. Now, may I invite Rosita Zanova? Data in Africa. How safe is data if you're using blockchain technology? That was one of the questions that was raised in the earlier sessions. I hope you'll be able to answer that.
Good afternoon, everyone. Let me try again. Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you all for staying a little bit later today. These are the biggest blockchain and big data enthusiasts in the whole conference. I'm going to just wait until they put the presentation on. Okay, so I move through here. Okay. Perfect. So my name is Rosita. I'm an associate partner and founder of Dalberg Data Insights, which is the big data entity of Dalberg Group, a strategy, design, an advisory firm focused on international development. And I'm here to talk to you a bit about data. In fact, I will try to talk less about data and more about the application of it. Because just like blockchain, data is an enabler for an end goal, but not really the end goal itself, right? So we need to talk more about the real applications behind it rather than the technologies that empower them. So let me start by pointing out 3 facts, since I'm going to be talking about data. And they're actually small data facts, but really important as a segue to the bigger big data conversations. First one is in the agriculture space, and already more than 70% of African farmers have used information and communication technology, with 90% seeing increased overall output productivity. The second one is in the public health space, and it comes from Uganda. In fact, Code 8 is an invention invented by 4 young Ugandans. And it uses a sensor device on a smartphone to diagnose malaria without a blood sample. And the third one will not come as a surprise to anyone, I hope. It's about financial inclusion and how it's been on the rise in the continent, here particularly East Africa. What do all these 3 facts have in common? I'll give you a hint. They are not related to the blockchain. In fact, the only thing they have in common, one second, is that they're empowered by a mobile device, a simple mobile device. And I think while the blockchain is still a long way to go to prove the applicability and the impact it can have on the continent, a simple mobile device has proven that point over the last few years. It has proven the direct impact on the livelihoods of people. People now, with the increase and accessibility of simple mobile technology, people could have access to information. Farmers in distant rural areas could have information about best practices to grow seeds, to grow their plants, to have access to weather information, etc., etc. Refugees and migrants can be connected to their loved ones thanks to mobile devices. And people in rural areas could have access to information regarding health. These are some of the direct benefits of mobile technologies, but I'll give you some of the indirect ones. Every time we use our mobile devices, we share a data point. A data point, when all of these data points aggregated and anonymized, they could tell a lot of information about population movements. They could tell information about spending patterns. And all these data points, again, when aggregated and anonymized, could fill data gaps. Data gaps that are quite significant when we talk about the reach of the Sustainable Development Goals. Not only the implementation, but also the monitoring of the Sustainable Development Goals. In fact, the data gap is quite large. On average, data for only 20% of the SDGs is currently available and up to date. So there is no way we could know how far we are and how long we still have to go if we cannot measure properly where we stand. And that's why data is very, very important. I'm going to give you, and of course with the adoption and the advancement of new technologies, data is being passively generated, and that data in anonymized and aggregated manner could be used to monitor some of the SDGs. Data from cell phone devices, data from satellite, and data from sensors. And I'm going to give you a couple of applications. So we, my firm, Dalberg Data Insights, have built a data platform, designed and piloted it. So still in piloting phase. Hopefully it's going to scale in the next few months, years. We've designed a data platform that, this one doesn't work. And what is actually the data platform about is about the aggregation of big and small data sources. Big data sources such as anonymized telecom data, such as images from space, from satellite companies, such as sensors, some of the big data, and then the small data that not many people talk about, but is as essential to monitor anything, and that is surveys, census, administrative data. All of these data is now processed, anonymized, aggregated, and visualized using a data platform. And again, the technology is the enabler, but the most important part is starting from the human-centered approach, knowing who are we building for and why does this actually matter. I'm going to focus on very briefly, three applications around solar and monitoring the off-grid energy space in Uganda, about urban planning in Kampala, and about agriculture, using these new data sources, starting from the first one. So aggregated and anonymized data from the pay-go transactions that is being processed by the mobile operators in Kampala, in Uganda, could actually give a real-time information about the off-grid electricity penetration in the country. That data source is quite essential because, you know, while the census surveys, etc., could come on irregular basis, such data source is real-time and could fill information gaps. And why this is important? Because when investors want to come and invest in the solar space in Uganda, or when policies need to be made, we need to understand what is actually the impact of such policies, and we need to be able to convince investors to come and invest with the power of such data. Second use case is using satellite images to monitor the crop yield in almost real time. This is something we did in northern Uganda. And here, to build any kind of machine learning models, the data scientists in the room will know, we need the small data as well to be able to train the models. And while the satellite images was quite important to be able to scale that to the full area, what we did is we went in the field and collected ground truth information, picked up sorghum and maize from the ground, weighted it, measured it, to be able to collect this small data set that trained the big data sets to be able to monitor the crop yield production of a couple of crops in northern Uganda. And last but not least is the human mobility indicators using anonymized mobile phone data. This is a pilot we did with the Kampala Capital City Authority, and in real time you could see population movements. Again, not individual data because we don't care whether Kwame is moving from A to B. What we do care is how many people move from A to B in real time, which in fact empowered the transportation master plan of Kampala Capital City Authority, which is and has the potential to monitor spread of infectious diseases and many others in the infrastructure space. And while here we are talking about data, we have to really acknowledge that data is a byproduct of digital, and any big data or digital transformation happens not only through technology. We need institutionalization. We need standardization of a lot of the methodologies we've worked on. We need the multi-stakeholder alignments from public, private, and development space. We need partnerships. And last but not least, we do need political will for many of these new technologies that are enablers to an end goal to take place and to really see the real impact of them. With that, thank you. And I'll give right to the next speaker. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Rosita. Thank you. Thank you. And may I now welcome Rodrigo to speak to us about the future of mobility and transportation.
Good afternoon, everyone. I know it's not easy after too much matoki to be still not sleepy as I am. First, it's an honor to be here. I'm really excited. Let me share you two things just before I start. So everyone knows, everyone hears that, you know, everybody has at least 1, 3, 5%. It's 5% African, right? Because everything started here. Due to data and technology that I love so much, recently I found out that I'm actually 19% African. So I'm really excited that this is my first, this is my first time that I'm in Africa, and in the Pearl of Africa, as it's called. So I'm very excited to be here. And the second one is that they've just told me that they legalized applause in Brazil and also here. So whenever you feel like applauding during the presentation, that's okay. They're not going to get you arrested. So let me tell you something. When I think about mobility, and I think about my childhood, everything that I was thinking is, I want to get a car. I want to be free. I want to go everywhere. But then when you grow up and you buy yourself a car and you leave the reseller, that's what you get. Traffic, pollution. And we're not only talking about that. If you're living in any of, sorry guys, if you're living in any of these places, any of these countries, due to pollution, you're already living less. 16 months, 14 months, 2 years. And that's why we needed to find out a new technology. We needed to think about a technology that was efficient, that was fast, but also was cheap. And that's how we started the Hyperloop. So Elon Musk, let's say 6 years ago, thinking about all the technology that has been proposed there, he named what is actually now the Hyperloop. We reached out to him, we explained what we wanted to do, we wanted to take this further, and he was not interested, so we trademarked the word Hyperloop, we started the whole movement around the world, and we started to actually develop. This is not a very new technology, it's been out there. When you think about the metro system, when you think about the subway system in New York City in 1886 that was being developed, was basically what we can actually see as a Hyperloop. Who has ever heard here about the Hyperloop? Please raise your hand. Fair enough. I'm really excited because this is one of the most exciting technologies that you will hear today. So Hyperloop is a new way of being connected. It's a new way of transporting people and goods at the speed of sound, but it's not only fast, it's human-eccentric. It's profitable. Let me show you a very short video. I know that I had before 20 minutes, now I got 10, but I'll make sure that I'm very brief in this presentation. Let's see a very short video that explains how fast we are in the technology in these 6 years.
Imagine a capsule.
Sound, please.
Imagine a capsule that can carry people. Placed inside it, pressure.
I can start again.
Imagine.
No.
Imagine a capsule.
There you go.
Imagine a capsule that can carry people. Placed inside is two. The air removed.
It's probably the train industry trying to not let me make this presentation. No. No audio. That's too bad. Did you guys connect it to the other port on the other side? Like we did the other time? Well, too bad. Sorry, guys. But let me move on. So basically what Hyperloop is a capsule that we put inside of a pressurized tube where we remove the air so that we don't have almost any air friction. So we can get to speeds of around 1,200 kilometers an hour. Using a passive magnetic levitation that does not require energy. And on top of the whole infrastructure, we use solar panels. So imagine that it's a system that is not only fast and safe, it's also generating energy and distributing energy around the stretch. Now we use a combination of solar panel, regenerative braking, so when the capsule is actually braking, it's generating also energy back to the capsule. In some cases, we also use geothermal, and in some cases, we use as wind. So in most of our feasibility studies that we've been running for the past 6 years, we can say that we can get from 15 to 45% of excess of energy. This is amazing. But most amazing is that we're using a new model. And for me, this is one of the messages that I want to leave here. It's not only about competition nowadays, it's about being collaborative. What the founders found out was, what they thought was, instead of us trying to create this technology all by ourselves, let's bring together our potential suppliers and offer them the chance to actually become founders and creators of this technology. So instead of us, for instance, creating So instead of us creating the fuselage of the capsule just by our own, we brought in Carburis, that is the same company that is manufacturing the fuselage for the Airbus. For the vacuum, we brought in Label, that is the company that invented the vacuum pump. So imagine that we are now over 45 huge multinational companies that are creating this right now. And it's all, the main point was, these companies and these engineers that wanted to work for us, they would work in exchange of stock options. So imagine that even before we raised 1 penny for the company, we already had 70,000 hours of skilled engineers working with us. This is actually now being taught by Harvard, how our company has applied this technology, and we are applying this model to create the company all around the world. We are right now 45 employees, full-time employees, but we are over 1,000 scientists that are still working on their day jobs, but they're also working for us part-time. They're investing 1 hour, 2 hours, 5 hours a week, and they're still contributing to the success of the company. Right now, as I said, we're over 45 of these amazing partners that are building this company with us. The Hyperloop is happening now. This is not the future. We're building the future now. You'll see in the next 4 or 5 years, people traveling on a Hyperloop. But how far are we in this technology? And I hope we can try to have the sound again. Let's see. You can try to put a play there, yeah.
An idea can be a small, fleeting thing. An inkling worth protecting. Because at any moment, the slightest breeze blows an idea off course. But the world's first passenger-ready Hyperloop cannot be blown off course. And 320 meters of tube, anchored to the earth at the Francazal Air Force Base, is anything but small. This is not an idea. This is a reality, happening in Toulouse, France. From there, our capsule will race across the earth, connecting countries in a matter of minutes. Let the word go out. Hyperloop Transportation Technologies has begun testing in Toulouse. In the most real, category-defining, forward-charging sense of the word. This actual capsule, these actual pumps, in this actual place. The world's first full-scale Hyperloop system. And from here, what started as an idea is racing to life.
This is when you can applaud. We had amazing milestones throughout the 6 years. When we think about a transportation mode, the first thing you got to think is safety. So we've been thinking about safety from day one. That's why we've been working with the main regulatory and certification bodies from day one. Last year, we had some very important reports on our technology. One of them was from TÜV that is one of the biggest certification company in the world that it's showing that a technology is certifiable. The second one was Munich Re, one of the biggest reinsurance companies in the world that has reported that the technology is insurable. Those are 2 very important milestones that are necessary for any mode of transport that is being created. Right now we have projects in 12 countries. 3 of them are actually to build commercial lines. One in Ukraine, one in China, and the UAE. And of course, the research and development facility that you just saw is the 1.5 kilometers that we're building in France with the help of the French government. That's going to be ready by the end of this year. And by next year, we have it certified and insured, and we'll have the first human travels happening. So we're very, very excited. Some of the other developments we already delivered as well, the regulatory framework for the European Union. We are planned to have to hit ground next year in Abu Dhabi to build the first 10 kilometers. We are doing a very important feasibility study with 23 institutions, including NASA in the US, to connect Chicago to Cleveland. Actually, in the past weeks, another state has just joined. And also, it was announced by the Secretary of Transport, Chow, a council in the US, inside the Department of Transport, just to work on the regulatory framework for Hyperloops and autonomous vehicles. We were hosting them, the Department of Transport of the US, in the past 2 weeks. I was hosting them with our chairman and co-founder, and they announced actually last Thursday that it was approved $5 million to actually invest in the regulatory framework and make this even faster. So that was another very important milestone for us. And recently, we also signed a partnership with the Port of Hamburg to develop our technology applied to ports. So imagine that nowadays, in the future, you won't be needed the port to actually be in the shore. You can have it anywhere you want, traveling at the speed of sound. Again. And of course, we're developing this around the world. We've also been present in the parliament in Australia, showcasing the technology. We're now teaching and showing that to the world that this is not a dream. We're actually building now, as I said. How does our business model work? Rodrigo, are you guys building everything? No, we're not. Our focus is to develop technologies for mobility. We are a technology, we license the technology. We don't want to build, we don't want to operate. We actually use local companies. We focus on developing the technology, taking them also always to the next stage, and integrating all this together. So we are what we call a network orchestrator. So we're in the top line of profitability. So as I said, we're a technology creator, we're an asset-light company, and a network orchestrator. This is the other message that I want to leave to you is, no matter the market, you should always focus on the problem. Because the biggest problem that we have, that we see companies failing and dying, is because we're always trying to make sure that our products are sold. If you start thinking about the problem, if you focus on the problem, which is mobility, it won't matter if now it's a car, if it tomorrow is a Hyperloop. You always be in spearheading technology. So this is very, very important. And the last short video that I wanted to leave with you, that puts together the reason why I'm so passionate about this company. That is not only bringing a revolution for making this technology accessible, cheap, fast, and safe, but it's also bringing in a new mode of creating companies that is not competitive, but it's collaborative to actually solve the biggest problems of humanity. I'll let you click like last time. No, let me go back. Once more. It's like a 1-minute video. There you go.
Je m'appelle Henriette Ardouin et j'habite à Bagnères de Luchon. Je suis l'une des femmes les plus âgées de France. J'ai peut-être un peu de compétition. Je suis née avant que les hommes se déplacent rapidement. Je me rappelle les premières voitures. J'ai assisté à la disparition du Earth, le mur du son. l'Américain qui a planté le drapeau sur la Lune. Tout ça, je l'ai vécu dans ma vie. On m'a dit qu'il y avait du nouveau bientôt, comme une nouvelle manière de parcourir la Terre. Et on vous emmène dans un tube à 1000 km/h en lévitation. Et ça marche avec l'énergie solaire. L'avion à l'époque aussi, c'était un grand défi. Je me rappelle de mon père, cet engin ne va jamais décoller du sol. Cette machine, vous l'avez construite, n'est-ce pas? C'est quoi son nom déjà? Hyperloop TT.
Seconds, I promise. When I was 15, I promised my parents that I was going to change the world. And after 7 years that I worked for multinational companies in the transportation sector, as a coincidence, then I tried to found 3 companies. 4 years ago, when I sold my last company, and I was at this event thinking about which kind of project that I can work with, I literally bumped into this one of the most inspiring person I ever met, which is Bob Cresta, the founder. And when he was telling me about this technology, I was like, this is too Jetsons. This is not going to work. This is too futuristic. And when he told me to be able to give accessibility to people through mobility, and he said, and I will never forget that, he said, imagine what we can do with this technology in countries like in Africa. How we can actually give this to people and bring access to people. This could actually change the world. This could actually change Africa. And that's what really hooked me. So honored to be here. So honored to be among you guys. And if you want to talk to me, I'll be here. Thank you so much.
Another round of applause, because you are definitely leaving a dent on the world. And seeing what you're thinking about and you want to do is simply phenomenal. Now, as expected, we have had to make an adjustment and have every reason for people to stay a little bit longer at the cocktail. So I am going to request you to take your seats. People who have questions will find you at the cocktail and ask very specific questions to you. I hope that is acceptable to us. So let's give them another round of applause. Now, one last panel, and it's a conversation that is going to be done with the UN. But before that, I would like to ask the team to show one video from one of our key sponsors. And then I am going to invite Dr. Lilian Nabulime to come and speak to us briefly. And we'll have the last panel, the UN panel, in about 20 or so minutes, and then we can go and do what we all need to do. The beer is there, I have confirmed. The brewers are telling me something. What is happening?
Peter has it. Vicky has it. Steven has it too. For Peter, it comes when he's in the comfort of his home, enjoying entertainment courtesy of reliable internet connectivity. Vicky gets it when conveniently ordering new stuff for her boutique online. For Steven, it comes every time he takes a seat at work. There it is, that smile. Sign of confidence and satisfaction. Knowing you've got a reliable internet connection for your home, your office, and your business. Get internet that works from MTN Business. It's a fast, reliable, and affordable connection powered by our countrywide fiber broadband network. Visit an MTN service center near you and let's talk.
So MTN, thank you very much for enabling us to talk. And I'm pretty sure all the things are powered over the network. So let me invite Dr. Lillian Navulime, a senior lecturer at Makerere University. She'll speak to us in about 10 minutes, and then the panel that comes after will specifically deal on linking the SDGs and the fourth industrial revolution. And that should happen right after Lillian's presentation.
Hello, Lillian Navulime, Dr. Lillian Navulime, lecturer in the School of Fine Arts, and I'm mainly a sculptor. So when I was invited to this conference, I said, what am I going to present? Well, I'm going to show you what I do, and maybe in the end we can see how we can move on. Well, those are my sculptures. That is what I did in when I was doing my master's. I'm a wood carver, and I have enjoyed making sculptures from tree roots. Those are tree roots. Afterwards, I moved to other forms, the beauty, and I'm enjoying women. I enjoy making sculptures of women. Here I combine metals and wood. Aluminium, tall elongated poles. Some of these sculptures or wood, people have no interest, but I take advantage and I make beauty out of them. And I enjoy working on large sculpture pieces. I enjoy really to extend my ability to any form of wood. Those are wooden sculptures that cannot even be lifted by one or two people. You need sometimes cranes, metal and wood. And that is ficus, that is which usually goes around our tree roots. And sometimes I'm making of found objects. Many of Uganda is losing a lot of trees due to the to industrialization, but I secure some of these pieces and I make beautiful pieces. And I know once some of these pieces will never exist. I've traveled a lot, Denmark. I'm in workshops sometimes. Well, my life turned around because I kept on enjoying sculptures, but then I was challenged by also working on issues that affect society. I was affected by HIV/AIDS. My husband lived with HIV/AIDS, and I had to transform from what I developed to develop sculptures that can help us communicate HIV/AIDS. I don't live with HIV/AIDS, but I was attached, and because once HIV/AIDS comes into your family, you are all assumed that you are sick. But when I got an opportunity to go to the University of Newcastle, I produced sculptures that can communicate HIV/AIDS. My supervisors were surprised. I said, you are not a scientist. You are not a healthy person. I said, yeah, that is the problem affecting me. And my first sculptures were developed from bark cloth, which is a natural material, which is also part of my heart. And I used those sculptures with paper mache. And the first piece I produced came out rotten. And when I produced another one, came out very nicely. And then when I put the two pieces together, they were telling me that we have to care for people living with HIV/AIDS. And by that time, I kept on thinking about HIV/AIDS, how it had affected us. my family, because we have one daughter. And I kept on thinking about my cultures. How could I communicate HIV/AIDS through my sculptures? That is the motto and peso. So, and the motto is the woman, and the peso is the man. But by that time I producing that sculpture, the female condom had come on market. So inside the sculpture is lined with copper, and outside it was not easy to make that piece. And my supervisors realized I was not progress. They said, you should get with a group of women living with HIV. So I was able to get a group in London. And then I had to interview them and ask them how they felt about the disease. Well, they told me they had come to the UK. Their lives had transformed. So I could express that by the lipstick and the hairdo. And then they said, much as they were in Europe, they were still struggling. And below are the pieces of wood, which shows that much as they are moving on in life, but they have to worry about their children. And then, much as I was working with wood, but then I had to transform how I could use materials to communicate HIV/AIDS. And I looked at the woman that we are containers. Well, we are receivers, but then our bodies are porous. They allow fluids and disease. So one of the baskets has nails, which I was relating to disease and suffering. And then another has latex, which I was relating to using latex. That is if the women have the chance to use protection. And then I was also looking at the usual activities women use in our village. We have used in the villages, winnowing. And then winnowing, I was looking at the various subject matters. The cowrie shells represent money. Then that was telling about the prostitution. And then also interviewing the women. Then I told them, well, if you are into prostitution, then you have to use protection. And then sometimes the women were also telling, oh, we are still engaged in sex. I said, oh my God, then you have to use protection. So winnowing is about the lifestyles of women and their vulnerability. And this piece, which now is in Denmark, was trying to show that is the most sensitive area of a woman. But it is beautiful. Of course, women are beautiful and they have to care about themselves, but as well as minding about their lives. So when I was doing that research in the UK, and the women told me they didn't want more of HIV. I asked them, do you want more information about HIV/AIDS? They said, no. I said, my years I've spent in the UK studying. They said, no. Well, I said, now I realized that those who needed HIV/AIDS information were the Ugandans. And when I came back to Uganda, I took photographs of the earlier work you'd seen. And then when I reached in one of the organizations I interviewed, which was in Mbuya and Nakola, the women said they didn't know what sculpture was all about. And I said, oh my God. So then I went to the organizations which were working on HIV/AIDS, 13 of them. They said, no, we can't use HIV/AIDS. I said, why? Because your sculptures are big. They are not easily movable. And I said, what kind of sculptures do you want? As they told me, they want the sculptures which are you can easily move around, which are interactive, which are meaningful. I said, okay. So I went back to the UK and made more developments. Those are my models in clay. They're small. And then I had to think what material, because each material you have to use has to be meaningful. And this material I came up across. I remember when I was taking a plane to the UK, I asked my mother, which is the cheapest material in Uganda. She said soap. Everybody in Uganda uses soap. I said, okay. So when I arrived in the UK, I made many experiments, but then I had to come up with a material, which was soap, transparent soap. That is, I could easily get it in the UK. And then I also remembered the form also matters, because when you're talking about HIV/AIDS in Uganda, you also have to talk about how people get it. Mainly it is through the private areas. I said, okay. Then I remember making a model in abstract, a male and a female organ. And then when I put the cowrie shells, really, well, you can think what you want. And then I was able to embed objects into them. And for me, they were colorful, interesting. And I said, this is the piece I have to take to Uganda. Of course, my pieces were registered in the UK and Uganda. And then I had also to think how much as these are small sculptures, but I have to engage people into them. So that was maybe chess. Life is a game. Family, we are on the family. We don't know who has HIV/AIDS. So then I came back to the Uganda and I was able to take these sculptures to the people, especially these were people who were not highly educated. And at first they were the women who were living with HIV/AIDS. And when I showed them the sculptures, I asked them, what do you think? Because I also wasn't sure their reaction would be. They said, ooh. And I said, well, these are female human organs. I said, now? Well, what do you think? They said, well, regarding to disease. Then they started telling me about infection and how the disease had affected them. They even told me about the CD4 counts, blah, blah. And for me, that meant that through sculpture, we can communicate issues that we cannot even, the taboos, because here we don't talk about these sex and sexual issues publicly, and that could be the reason why we are having more infection. But still, through these soft sculptures, the women were able to talk, and through their less education, they were still able to interpret HIV/AIDS. So we had wonderful stories, and I kept on taking them to the villages. And I remember one time, because I had to feature in the newspaper, because my supervisor said, if your sculptures are communicating, please bring evidence they are communicating. So the newspaper had to interpret. And then, of course, that is some of the soap sculptures. The sculptures which have been used, I realized that I could use them to interpret, communicate issues that affect women. But it was also an experience that as a sculptor, I can work with other materials. And at the same time, we also have, we can also add other materials. We can add sound, video, so that much as I'm a wood cover, I can incorporate my sculptures with other materials. Now here comes blockchain. So what I think we artists would need from blockchain is intellectual protection. But at the same time, from what I've heard from these speeches today, that means we sculptors, we have to think of other skills, how to move on with our art. I think that is all. Thank you.
Another round of applause. Now, some people may be asking, so what is blockchain about this? There are multiple possibilities that we can get to work with people like Lillian to be able to continue the good works that she's able to do. Because right now it is hard work and hard labor to get one sculptor up. And so we are not having this session on the 4IR use cases, the panel session. Allow me take you to the last session, and that is going to be moderated by the resident representative, UNDP in Uganda, and that is Elsie Atafua.